Welcome to Even More New Treasures, the Genealogy Center's digital collections. So you might be questioning, why even more? Well, that's because the Genealogy Center currently hosts about 5 million items on its website under its free databases collection. And back in June of 2021, we offered a program about how to access that material. And we are today going to discuss how you access that material, but every example used in today's program is a collection that has been added since June of 2021. So it is something that has been added anywhere in the last 9 months. And so it's even more new treasures. So to get started, first thing I want to draw your eye to is in the upper right corner, there is a login button, and this usually confuses people. Well, I'm here to tell you, just ignore that login button. Just completely ignore it. It has nothing to do with the free databases we are going to discuss today. So just ignore that, and we will move on to our actual databases, which you can access by either going through the tabs above the picture. So you can go to Explore Genealogy, and once your drop-down menu appears, and you can select Our Resources, or depending on how your screen looks, you could go below the picture, and there is a green Our Resources button. It doesn't matter which option you go with. Either way, it's going to lead you to our database page. Now here you see there are 2 options available to you. And the on-site databases, which is the second option, that is the databases that we have paid the licensing fee to be able to access. And you physically have to be on site at an Allen County Public Library location. So we are going to ignore those for today and focus instead on those free databases, which you can access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with no library card, no need for anything except your computer and the internet, because as it says here, these databases can be accessed for free from anywhere. When discussing our databases, we are actually going to start with looking at the resources by location. With those resources, clearly, we will start with the first location, which is Allen County, Indiana, where the Allen County Public Library is located. But if you do not have Allen County research, please stick around. There's so much more here at the Genealogy Center's website, because I did mention that it's more than 5 million items in these free databases. So to start with, for the Allen County resources, the images that you're seeing here, these are the headings for the collections available on this page. This is not everything. I just wanted to give you an idea of what types of records are available. So as you can see, the wide array of material available for you to access. And one of the newest collections that we have added in the last 9 months is the Liaison's Report of Fort Wayne's Soldier Participation in Volunteer Citizen Front for World War II. Now, this is a published book that we've gotten permission to digitize. And so as you can see here, there's a table of contents where you can select different sections of the book you want to go to. So the first section we're going to look at is the alphabetical list of the wounded by districts. And so it breaks down the different district numbers, tells you what area of town it is, and then it is listed alphabetically by the surname of the soldier, as well as giving you their address at the time in Fort Wayne. Another section to this book is the honor roll of those who gave their lives. Here it shows that during the World War II era, 361 Fort Wayne men and women lost their lives during the World War II. So that was one example. Next up, we have the Francis Slocum Elementary School PTA membership records. For this collection, the material is actually a booklet for membership rolls in which someone handwrote in the information from 1951 to 1956. What this can tell us is the name of the parents for a child who attended this school in these time eras. So here we have the first page for, it looks like it's February 21st, 1952. We have a Mr. and Mrs. George Weber, and they reside at 2110 Glenwood. Next up, if we look at another year, we have October 18th, 1954, Mr. George A. Weber and Mrs. Ladarina Weber at the same address. So as you can see here, if we look through the various years, we actually get different types of information, such as the wife's name appearing in this one. And then October 10th of 1955, we have Mr. and Mrs. George Weber, and the address is a little different. It's 2119 Glenwood. So this is a great example of why you definitely want to check each of the years, because looking here, we know through this time span of 1952 to 1955, the Webers had a child attending this elementary school. We also, thanks to looking at the 1954 membership roll, we are able to actually get the actual real name, given name for Mrs. Weber. And we're able to see that between 1954 and 1955, that the family moved their residence. This is why you should look for every year. Next up, we have our community album. This is a virtual scrapbook. So it's images, videos, all kinds of collections pertaining to Northeast Indiana quadrant. And so with these community album, you can get things pertaining to, as you can see here, firefighter photographs, family reunion photos, and the NDOT collection. Currently, it houses about 126 collections here. And the first one we're going to look at is actually that Indiana Department of Transportation collection, in which that is one of our newer collections here. And for those of you who have visited us at the Allen County Public Library, you might find this as interesting as I did. This is for the time span of 1990 to 2000, and it shows the different projects that were going on. And so for me, I'm not a native Hoosier. And so I actually moved to Fort Wayne following this time span. And so to see the actual development of the areas that I am now familiar with was interesting. So for those of you who have visited us, maybe some of these would be of note for you as well. As you can see here, there are currently 227 photographs in this collection, in which here, for those of you who might come to visit us at the library coming through the 469 bypass, here's an image of the opening celebration in 1995. For those who might be familiar with State Road 1 and DuPont Road, here's a ribbon cutting in 1996 for the expansion of that intersection. Or for those who use the US 2733 Decatur bypass, this is the groundbreaking in 1990. So it's just an interesting collection that's showing the historical development of the area. Next up, we have the Cosmopolites Business and Professional Women's Club. This is an interesting collection from Fort Wayne, in which a group of women got together in 1957 and decided that they wanted to have this club that offered different services and different scholarships and different civic activities for the Fort Wayne community. So they came up with a scholarship for high school students They came up with the idea of being able to send a family on a family vacation that they otherwise would not be able to go on, and also participate in other fundraising expeditions in the Fort Wayne Allen County region. And so this interesting and fascinating group provided their collections of their meeting notes, their photographs, their records, scrapbooks, and so forth to the community album. One of the great collections they have provided is their fashion show images. So here we have a 2018 booklet of their fashion show. This was a show that they would hold annually in order to earn money to pay for these different endeavors that they were interested in participating in and being able to provide back to the community. So here we have some great images of local members of the Allen County community walking the catwalk. So it's just an interesting organization that was local to this region. Next up, we have Indiana Resources, in which with these items, you can see here, once again, I'm going through and I'm showing you the headers. This is not everything for each of these counties. This is just the headers to show you what kind of materials there are. You can see there's different things pertaining to cemetery records, school records, church records. There's even a brand book for the brands for the cattle. There are different books such as Coroner's Inquest, things pertaining to the different schools, different things pertaining to marriages, history of the houses, and so forth. Currently, there are 59 out of the 92 Indiana counties that there are resources available on the Genealogy Center free databases under Indiana Resources. So as you can see with these headers, there's just so much information that you can access, and it just keeps growing. I can't stress that enough. So you definitely need to keep checking back to see what is available here at the Genealogy Center website. So the first thing we're going to look at is the new edition of the Valparaiso High School Class of 1939 50th Reunion. This is actually in addition to other Valparaiso High School materials we already had at the Genealogy Center. This, we just added it to that collection, but this is a newer item, which you can see it's a booklet for the reunion, in which you have images of the individuals who participate in the tour of Valparaiso. You've got images from the gala event that they held for this reunion. You also have things like the Sunday brunch, as well as towards the bottom here, you have those who could not make it to the reunion, but images were submitted for this booklet, so they were not forgotten as part of this reunion. And then there are the family or the couple's photographs that are similar to the actual yearbook photographs that we all are familiar with, except this time it includes the spouses as well. Next up for Indiana Resources, we have the President's Soldiers Statesmen book, and this is specific for the Wabash County, Indiana section, which you have a table of contents. You also have a search inside button. So if the collection is searchable, there will be the search inside button. What that means is we've been able to use optical character recognition to be able to try to read the script. So using that, we're able to search for names that you're interested in. Now, when you are searching for an individual in the Genealogy Center databases, start your search with the surname only. So here we have where we search for the surname Payne, P-A-Y-N-E, and we wind up getting links to images to this one that's a heading under Noah B. Matthews, and it details his life, and it gives us information including his family members, such as his eldest child, Rosa, is now Mrs. Payne. So this is why Payne is coming up on this particular page. But as we look at other results, we do find a header for a Samuel J. Payne, in which we get all kinds of information about his participation, including that where he enlisted, what unit he was a part of. We are told that he served in New Orleans, Louisiana, that he also was serving in Arkansas and Mississippi. And then, of course, perfect timing. At the end of the page, it says at Champion Hills, May 16th, 1863, he was twice, ... Continue to the next page, we are told wounded in the head. In this battle, his whole regiment was in great danger of entire destruction. We're told that he also suffered from typhoid fever in March of 1862, that he was in a hospital in New Madrid, Missouri with that. We're told about when he returned back to service, and we're told that when and where he was discharged, and that he is a member of the GAR and what post he is affiliated with. We also get his vital statistics, birth, marriage, death information, as well as information about his parents, including his mother's maiden name, as well as information about his wife and his children. So lots of great information just by searching for that surname, Payne. And so if you had an ancestor who's in one of these books, that's a local resource, wouldn't you be thrilled to find this kind of information about him? Next up, we have our other state resources. Once again, I'm going to show you the headers. One of the headers currently residing under our other state resources is other countries. We currently only have a digital collection for the South Africa collection, but we are proud beneficiaries of a researcher who has provided such wonderful, wonderful resources from South Africa. Otherwise, you continue through the other state resources, going alphabetically by the state. Once again, I'm only providing you the headers here. This is not everything under all of these states. I just wanted you to be aware of what you could possibly find out of the 38 states that we currently have materials for under other state resources. As you can see, a lot of the material just widely varies in what is available. And once again, it just keeps growing. So you've got to keep checking back to see what might be added to the Genealogy Center's other state resources. So when you're looking at these materials, one of our newer collections in the last 9 months is the IOF Records in Kansas, in which we have lodge records for 1899 to 1924, as well as another organization's 1955 to 58 records. You might be saying, well, why would I be interested in those records? Yeah, it's great to know my ancestor was affiliated with the organization, but there's not going to be a lot of genealogical details in there. Well, that's the thing about these groups. Yes, you're right. It's about the decisions going on with the organization, but they do provide some interesting details that normally would be in like diaries or correspondence. And you can find them in these kinds of organizational records. So for example, here we have from January 21st, 1924, we have brother and sister Cox in need of our sympathy at the loss of a sister. We also have about 2 weeks later, February 4th, Sister Terrell, of whom has been very poorly, was a little better, and Sister Just, getting along fine, able to be about the house on crutches. 4 days later, we find out that Sister Maurice Rhodes is doing quite poorly, and Sister Terrell, who was just mentioned 4 days earlier that she was getting better, well, she's not so well again now. A week later, on the 15th of February, Sister Galbraith, having her teeth all removed, is quite poorly, and Sister Terrell not so well again. And then we have this full page, a resolution of sympathy and respect in memory of our beloved Sister Vera Johnson, who departed this life February 11th, 1924. So as you can see, you can get a lot of information about your ancestors from even just the minutes of organizations they were affiliated with. Next up, another wonderful collection that has been added in the last 9 months is the funeral records of Heitzelman family of funeral directors, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania. As you can see, you can click on the table of contents if you wanted to scroll through this collection, or you could search through the collection. This has records from 1908 to 1966 for this particular county in Pennsylvania. When we search inside, this time we are going to search for the surname Ebert, because we are always going to start our searches on the Genealogy Center databases by searching by the surname. So here I'm given the results page where on the left I have a page number, which is a hyperlink to the actual image. And then in the center, I have the text. This is the text that is created by the optical character recognition, in which this is where the text comes through that can be indexed. You will start to notice with the text that there are errors and issues, and that is because depending on the font, depending on issues with the ink, depending on spacing issues, the computer may not be able to determine what is meant. So it's trying its best to give us the text. So we start with that surname. When we do, my recommendation is to get a better sense of what's here in this text. Use your file menu from your website and from your website browser and do an edit find, in which here you can see towards the bottom, I wanted to search for the last name of Ebert that we were looking for. I select highlight all because I like to be able to see it all on the page and be able to see the surrounding words. And as you can see here, there are 67 matches at this time. Here we have Bertha Alice Ebert, and we're told she died February 2nd, 1909. Next up, we have Father Robert J. Ebert. So you might be asking, why wouldn't I just put the name in I'm searching for? Well, first off, you'd have to know exactly how the name is entered in here. So if you put Bertha Ebert, you would not find Bertha Alice Ebert. You would have to put Bertha Alice Ebert in. Same thing with the father. You would have to have put Robert J. Ebert in, because if you just put Robert Ebert, it wouldn't catch it. So that's one of the reasons why I highly recommend you start with the surname and progress from there. So using the Ebert search and the Ebert results, this time I can actually go to my browser and select from the file menu to edit and find. But this time I'm going to ask for POLL, and that is for Polly. Now you might be going, well, aren't you missing a letter? Well, actually, I'm trying to provide variants for the computer to find, and I'm going to show you why. Here, for example, we have the mother is Polly Both. The mother's surname is not Both. It is due to spacing issues that for some reason the computer put in Both. Next up, we have Polly Snyder, except Polly is spelled with an exclamation point instead of a Y. So these are reasons why I would try variants and why I would not do the full name you're searching. So here are the results from the funeral records, in which you get the name of the deceased, occupation, their date and place of birth and death. You get parents' names, spouse, and the informant, a cause of death, the physician's name, the place of burial, as well as a name of the clergyman. So that's a lot of great information that you can receive for this region for such a wide span of years. So as you're looking at this, you're going through and you're having to make sense of the different entries. So if I took the snip of Bertha Alice Ebert and then took a snip of two other Eberts, here we see Bertha Alice Ebert, and we see her date of death and that she died at age 4. Below her, we have David Ebert and Polly Bogert. And this is why we would never have found Polly Ebert listed, because Ebert is her maiden name, but nowhere on this document does it say that together. So David and Polly have the same parents. So when trying to trace the family, I started with this unit, the John Ebert and Maria Barbara Fry. And this is what you can do. You can take these details and you can pull them together. And so here we have, for example, pulling it together, I have my first generation of John Ebert and Maria Barbara Fry. And then from there, I can expand out where I can see their children's spouse. I was able to get information for then the next generation for each of these family units, including their spouses. And then I was able to then get a 4th generation as well and their spouses. So in which I was able to get birth and death information. I was able to get information pertaining to parents, spouses, and details pertaining to their death for all of these individuals. So as you can see, I was able to actually create a 4-generational chart off of those funeral director records. So the red indicates the 1st generation, the blue indicates the 2nd generation, orange, the 3rd generation, and purple is the 4th generation. All from the funeral home records that I just searched on the Genealogy Center's website. And we have more family resources. We have things like the family Bible records. So the front matter and family Bibles, we have that information where you can choose among the different records or you can search through them. Here we have a new edition of 1820 Philip Trezee's Bible, in which you can choose among the different images and you can get the actual transcription of the pages as well. So here we have the birth page in which you can see there's a lot of water damage, ink damage to this page, lots of discoloration. And so on the image on the right, you have the original image, and then we have in the middle, the actual transcription of what is written on that image. Another new addition is the Ira Daniel and Cornelia Pallone Ames Family Bible, in which once again, we can choose among the various images and we can see the images as well as read the transcriptions from this 1875 Bible. Next up, we have our family resources. So with our family resources, when you go there, you can actually select among a grouping of the surnames, in which I wanted to show you just how when looking at these family resources, like the Case family, for example, here, different individuals submit different types of materials for the family surname. And so you can have someone who has actually published a book, you can have someone who's provided photographs, all kinds of different family resources. So one of our new additions is the Lewis Family Scrapbooks, Living Through the COVID-19 Pandemic. Here you can see the arrow is pointing to where you can go back to the Lewis Family Scrapbooks, where you can see Susan Lewis has been donating this material to us. We have several scrapbooks listed here, which are fabulous. It's just in the last 9 months, we have added the COVID-19 pandemic scrapbook. And what I love about the scrapbook is not only is it the way you expect the scrapbook to be with little letters, notes, cards, information, but also she provides details and history connections. So that way there is rich genealogical information here. So she has this card from my friend Patty Gump in the midst of the COVID-19 virus social isolation. She also made face masks for us, Darcy and her family. So as you can see, I mean, how else would you know that little input of story about who made face masks for these individuals during the COVID pandemic? These are those little tidbits, those little stories we seek about our family. And here it is in a scrapbook. Next up, these are images in which she's also got notes talking about how the neighborhood is handling the pandemic, in which she has our Friday at 5 p.m. greeting time on our back porches. And so she's got pictures of her neighbors, Don and Shirley Hess above, and then a picture of herself. And this is one of my favorite. She has these two images. So if you took just these two photographs, what would you even think that these are images of if you found that in a photo album? But we don't need to second guess or question because she provides us that information. She tells us about the history of when she met Danette Norman, how Danette wound up marrying Tom Till. She talks about their previous traditions involving Christmas gift exchanges. She says that the Tills live near Warsaw, Indiana, and that she talks about the fact that they had an appointment this year during the pandemic for their dog Livy with the veterinarian. And so because of the various restrictions, they met in the parking lot of the Indian Creek Veterinary Hospital on Homestead Road on January 16th of 2021 to exchange their Christmas gifts. So that's what these photographs are. How would you have known that otherwise without this detail? And then the fact that she talks about the history of the relationship and the history of how they have done things in the past. This is the little information and details of people's lives that we are always seeking. And here is a great example of someone providing that information. Next up, to show about family resources, how it's not just about family books or just about the family scrapbooks. Here we have ward family deeds of Grafton County, New Hampshire, and Caledonia County, Vermont, in which we see there is a number of deeds here for this family surname in this region. So here we have a warranty deed for Gilbert Lang and wife, because that's how this is typically written in certain time eras. The wife is not initially named in the record. She's just and wife. And this is a warranty deed to a Mary Ward. Says that I, Gilbert Lang of Monroe, Grafton County, New Hampshire, for the sum of $200 to me in hand by Mary Ward of said Monroe. Goes on to describe a parcel of property in the town of Monroe. And it describes the property like beginning at the southwesterly corner and so forth. But in the process, it names the neighbors, talks about the homestead place of Emma and Willis S. Smith. It talks about the Smith farm. It talks about the land of Robert S. Ward, talks about the dwelling house of Robert S. Ward. And you start to wonder, Robert S. Ward, is he possibly a relation of Mary Ward? And so these are things to consider when looking at this. We also have here, I'm Martha S. Lang, wife of Gilbert Lang. So here we finally have the wife's name listed. And she says, in consideration aforesaid, do hereby relinquish my right of dower in the before mentioned premises. And that's because in this area, in this time era, they still had dower rights, which meant that her husband could not sell this property without her permission, because otherwise he'd be selling away her rights should he die before her and she becomes a widow. she has a right to 1/3 of his property as a widow. And so she had to sign off. And so this is a great place where you can find the females listed by their name. And so this is a great example of that. And then we are told that this was witnessed by Robert S. Ward. So this possibility of that being the same person mentioned in the description, who could possibly be a relation to Mary Ward, and Sybil A. Lang, who, for all we know, could possibly be a relation to Gilbert as well. So all these little family connections just in these documents. Next up, we have our military heritage. So in our military heritage, when you are there, first you see we have materials for the colonial wars through current. And military materials span anything from books, pamphlets, actual service records, pension records, correspondence, V cards, anything that documents military activity. So here we have the letters of Robert Medic Sr. and Kenneth Fox and Dale Fox that were written during their service in World War II. The description goes on to explain who these people are. Robert Medic's wife, Mary, is actually the sister to William Dale Fox and Kenneth Bruce Fox, who are in the Navy. And so it provides you all that information about them. When looking at the types of records available here on this collection, we see that they're not just letters, they are photographs, there are pedigree charts, and there are stories. So here we have a letter from July 11th, 1944, and this is from Dale, who's the brother in the Navy, to his sister Mary. And he says, "Dear Mary, I just received your truly welcome letter, and to find the correct words to assure you of how terribly glad I was to hear from you is almost impossible. Gee, honey, it sure made me happy to hear from you once again. Sure, I forgive you for not writing sooner, especially with all the trouble you've had. I'm quite relieved to hear the children are over the whooping cough. How's your husband after his operation, you failed to say? I hope he's okay. I'll be looking forward to some pictures of the kids soon, so don't disappoint me. I'll bet Marilyn is getting to be a regular young lady now. You bet I appreciate the box. Honey, if the cigarettes are so hard to get them, please don't send any because you and Bob can use them, and I can always manage to get along with what I get. Thanks, but I'd rather you have them. I can't take them away from you. Heck, you're giving up plenty for us guys already." Recall, her husband has been in service as well. In every letter, a total of 6, that I've gotten since D-Day, I've heard of how silly I am to still think I still want Mildred. No, after everyone finally giving me their honest opinion, I can't picture myself with her again. I guess I wanted her again because I'm so far away and lonesome and had a lot of air castles built around her again. She'd probably do the same thing over again. By the way, today is her birthday, and I never even sent her a card. Good for me, right? Right? Of course, I had something to do with it. Well, you tell Bobby we're both doing our best to get home as soon as possible. Say, he must be a card asking you and Bob such a question. Did I know the ones who were killed in the fire at King's? I guess no one has heard from Ken in ages, but I wouldn't worry too much. Sure wish one of us would hear from him, though. Let's see, no one has heard from him since he left for his last mission over 2 months ago. His mail's probably hard up or something. Mary, what was wrong with you the day you wrote the letter? You left out words and spelled things wrong and such, and that's not like you at all. You bet I'll hurry home so you can clear your mind again. There's nothing I need outside clothes, and I've already written Mother for money to get them with, but thanks, just the same. I appreciate you asking. Tell Bobby I'd love to be able to hop on the boat he made for me and come home because I miss him very much. All of you as far as that goes. Bye-bye for now and write whenever you can. Loads of loves and kisses, Dale. Then we have here, 3 days later, her brother Ken, who they were concerned about, has written. And he says, Dear Mary, sorry I haven't written sooner, but it's really been out of the question. You know how it's been in the past. How is everything at Morrow? Is the town still as lively as ever? Am I kidding? How is my niece and nephew? Getting bigger every day, I guess. I haven't received any mail in about 2 months, so that leaves me in the dark as to what I should write about. Have you seen any of the Whitakers lately? If you see any of them, tell them that I said hello and would write in the near future. It is now 12:15 p.m. and I just got up. I have the 4 to 8 watch this trip, and I usually go to sleep for a couple of hours. After I get off watch, incidentally, I'm writing this at sea and the ship is really pitching, and here I am trying to write a decent letter. Well, how is the president of the Rochester Community Club making out? I bet you have some fun at your meetings. And yes, that is spelled correctly. Well, what do you think about Bob Taylor going to the Navy? God, I never thought he would make it. Oh, well, I guess they're getting pretty hard up for men now. Just kidding. At the present, I'm listening to some solid music from the States. We rigged up one of our radios for that purpose. The only trouble with it is that we can only use it part of the time. Is Helen living in Rochester now? If she is, tell her I'm getting plain mad at her for not writing. Thank you. Well, I hope that there's stacks of mail waiting for me at the post office. Boy, I sure need something to lift my spirits. The only thing I received all the time I was out was a copy of the good old Western Star. Well, Mary, I can tell you in about a week whether or not you can get ready for that party. By that time, I'll know whether or not I got home or got to school. Keep your fingers crossed. Well, sis, I guess I better close this letter for now. Write soon, and I'll try to do the same. Your brother, Kenny. P.S. Ask Bob if he can use a good radio technician after the war. Ha ha. Kenneth B. Fox, 5th Amphibious Force. In which also on the envelope in which this letter was sent also says it was addressed from the 5th Amphibious Force. So we have lots of detail between the two letters pertaining to the family, naming other family members. We have the whole discussion about the cigarette situation. It's just the realization of what people had to give up or had to send across the seas to be able to assist the men who were in service, who used cigarettes sometimes as money. You have here describing his watch and describing like listening to music and just trying to stay active while on the ship, talking about other neighbors, naming other neighbors and so forth. So these are just 2 letters. Can you imagine with other letters, how much more detail you could get about community, about the family and so forth? So these are wonderful, wonderful examples of what can be found in the Genealogy Center databases. And this, once again, is a new collection that has been added in the last 9 months. Here we have images of Kenneth Fox, the gentleman whose letter we just read, as well as his brother, Dale, and then their brother-in-law, Robert Medic. So there's been other resources on the Genealogy Center page that we have not discussed today because, well, time. So, but at least with the material we have covered today, I hope you have gotten a sense of what is available and what could be available in these other resources as well. So in the other resources, we have a Genealogy Center surname file in which it is a file of surnames that other researchers are researching. So they provide their contact information as well as the surnames they're researching in order to connect with other people to discuss research. We have an African American as well as a Native American gateway. These are two great resources pertaining to these two ethnic groups, in which it talks about the other types of records that can be found. We have in the African American gateway links to various websites that might not be easily located because they're like databases within certain sites. We also have listing of materials that we have for African American research, as well as materials we have for the Native American research. We also have links to other areas where other sites where you can search for Native American information. And then our new periodical source index PERSI link under our free databases. PERSI is now available to you for free at the Genealogy Center free databases website. And so for the periodical source index, it's a subject index for genealogical and local history magazines. It goes through the US, crosses over into other countries, and it's a wonderful resource that we have been indexing here at the Genealogy Center for several decades. And this resource is now available for you for free on the site. If you want to learn more about the new free PERSI, please check out the program that is available on the Genealogy Center's YouTube page, where we went into a deep dive into searching locations on the new PERSI. So when searching the collections on the Genealogy Center's free databases, you have seen that when you have the search box, we highly recommend search by the surname. That is the best option to get results. But that was in all those individual databases. You can, on the main genealogycenter.org page, you can actually search the free databases across all the databases, but from this link, recall, search by surname. When you do, you get a listing of the different databases, which database they're linked under, as well as number of matches for each of the different collections, and so forth. And then when you click on that, it continues giving you access to those different records for that particular surname. Also, there are other searches that are found within some of the collections. Some of the collections will provide you a fuzzy, an exact, or a SoundX search option within the collection. And so when you see that, typically, you will also see a box that looks like what's on the screen currently, in which it provides you an actual explanation that the fuzzy is actually the beginning of the letters or the ending of the letters or the grouping of the letters, but it's basically the string of the letters together that the database will search for that. Exact is exact, and SoundX is based on the sound of the name. So today we have covered how to access and search the free databases at the genealogycenter.org website. We covered a number of databases and showed you some new collections that have been added since June of 2021. And we are continuing to add to all these wonderful databases. So please keep checking back. So, are there any questions that people are interested in knowing more details about the Genealogy Center's free databases?